Tonight in 7 News, the Premier reveals the return to school may be delayed by the Omicron peak as the first young children get their jabs. Hospitals stretched to breaking point, elective surgery wound back, older Queenslanders told to stay home for 6 weeks. Novak Djokovic's parents strike back, calling his treatment by the Australian government inhumane. Ex-cyclone Seth crosses the coast, bringing rain and wild winds. Scott Boland strikes early as England fight back in the pink test at the SCG. And we're all in need of a feel-good Friday story, so meet Zoe, the Gold Coast staffy, and see her amazing tricks.
Live from Brisbane, 7 News with Samantha Heathwood.
Good evening. The start of primary school could be delayed. The elderly are being told to stay home, and elective surgery is being wound back as Queensland braces for Omicron's peak. It's coming faster than expected, with nearly 11,000 more cases today.
School's out for summer and Omicron.
The more time off, the better.
Term 1's due to start right when the pandemic's due to peak. A delayed return now likely.
Not again.
Oh, okay.
No, not again.
We will not be sending primary school students back during the first week of school if we are heading towards a peak. So we are looking at a 1 to 2 week delay.
Still not enough time for 5 to 11-year-olds to be fully protected, but they'll have the chance to receive one jab, the rollout starting Monday.
This is a common sense measure.
To limit the risk for the young and old.
We're not going out as much as we usually would.
Diabetic Kerry Linnard is off to stock up.
I'm going to try and stay home as much as I can.
Following the latest advice for the vulnerable.
Anyone over the age of 60 or 70, and I include any pregnant woman.
We're asking you to minimise your going out for essentially the next 6 weeks.
During Omicron's peak, the Care Army will be reactivated to help the isolated. Hospitals are also in dire need. Delays flagged on elective surgery being wound back at some public hospitals, hit with serious staff shortages as cases keep rising. Queensland recorded nearly 11,000 new infections today. 327 patients are now in hospital, 14 of those in intensive care and 3 on ventilators.
This is a very difficult time for Queensland at the moment, probably the likes that we haven't seen before.
1.3 million rapid antigen tests are coming to Queensland next week. Truck drivers no longer need a negative result to enter the state, and queues are improving in some places, not others.
Just about four and a half hours, heading on to 5 now. Just here for symptoms.
To avoid all that, there's a renewed push for working from home, greater social distancing and wearing masks, but we're not reintroducing density limits.
I acknowledge this is controversial, and others would not agree with this, but we are not going to stop this virus.
And its surge is coming sooner than expected. The government's pre-planning was based on Delta, but up to 90% of cases are Omicron, and it's spread much faster. Queensland will activate its disaster management group next week, a step usually taken during floods and cyclones, but now to fight COVID.
This is going to be a short, sharp wave, but it is going to really test the resilience of this state.
A state which its top doctor says is being saved by vaccinations, now at 87.5% double-dosed. Roughly 1/3 of tests are coming back as positive, but exactly how many cases are there in the community? Well, that's anyone's guess. Right now, there's no way of recording positive RAT results. From tomorrow, though, there'll be a phone hotline for people to call, and a website is coming, so the state government can keep track of this virus as it spreads rapidly through Queensland. Sam?
It can't come soon enough. Thanks, Michelle. Well, COVID-positive health workers may be asked to work in COVID wards as hospitals struggle for staff. The extent of the pressure facing the health system revealed in an emotional email to nurses at QE2.
Trying not to drown in the Omicron wave, the pressure on Queensland hospitals is getting worse. From today, the Wesley has banned visitors like Dino Peterson. His wife Diana is a cancer patient.
In the last 6 weeks, we've spent 4.5 of them in the Wesley, unfortunately.
He won't be there to support her now, but he's relieved she'll be safe from COVID.
I think for the staff, it's not going to get any easier. It's just going to start to spiral even more out of control. So I get why they're doing it.
At Gold Coast University Hospital, hundreds of staff are isolating with COVID or as close contacts. One worker telling 7 News they're short-staffed every shift and they fear patients could die.
Staff shortages result in staff fatigue, which increases drug errors and poor quality of care. We have had 2 years to prepare for this in Queensland and we are so underprepared, it's scary.
A nurse manager at QE2 describing the hospital as under duress, telling staff by email, prioritise tasks, take extra breaks, talk to each other, cry, whatever you need. The Chief Health Officer saying isolation requirements will likely change as the peak approaches.
It's possible that people who are asymptomatic and positive might be asked, for example, to work in a COVID ward. That's the sort of thing we are making plans for, contingency plans for.
Elective surgeries are being scaled back and could be suspended across the hospital system. It would free up capacity, but the impact is likely to be felt long after the Omicron wave ends.
The Health Minister will talk tomorrow about elective surgery in our public hospitals.
The opposition is calling for more beds.
For 2 years we've been told that Queensland Health was being prepared. Well, doctors and nurses don't feel like it is at the moment.
The Nurses Union wants more staff.
We've got a diminished workforce, so we need to be recruiting all of the additional health workers that we can get, and that includes new graduate nurses.
Jumping into the deep end of a COVID crisis. Rosanna Kingson, 7 News.
2 Brisbane girls are among the state's first 5 to 11-year-olds to receive their COVID vaccination. With the return to primary school likely to be delayed, there are calls to open all Queensland schools as mass vaccination hubs.
8-year-old Melody and 11-year-old Amelia are excited.
We got vax!
Administered by their father and GP, Dr. Aaron Chambers.
Never been in a moment in my career where we've all been so emotional about receiving a vaccine.
I'll be a lot more protected so that I won't get as sick.
From Monday, almost 500,000 Queensland children aged 5 to 11 will be eligible to get the Pfizer jab.
I've got probably booked in for a vaccination next week.
The Commonwealth is, just like they have for the last 12 months, responsible for getting that supply delivered to our vaccination centres.
School is meant to return on January 24, but there'll likely be a 2-week delay for primary students.
That is definitely not on the agenda, to send primary school children unvaccinated to school if we are in the peak of this wave.
Most primary students won't be double jabbed until at least March. The Independent Education Union is calling for mass COVID vaccination centres to be set up in schools urgently.
Vaccinations at a school level are very efficiently run.
Some GPs started receiving their child vaccine supply late this afternoon, but the Australian Medical Association says most Queensland doctors won't receive stock until next Friday.
The risk-benefit equation is so far in favour of the vaccine.
The state government's next mission, convincing all parents to get their kids vaxxed. 6-year-old Griffey won't be receiving one.
At this stage, I'd just like to leave it until we've seen a little bit more of what's to come with it.
As the virus threatens to interrupt another school term before it even starts. Crystal Etherington, 7 News.
Serbia has given Australia a serious diplomatic serve, accusing the government of treating Novak Djokovic inhumanely. As the tennis world #1 spends a second night in immigration detention, his family's spoken out, while supporters here have held protests.
At Melbourne's inner-city immigration hotel, dozens are in detention, but the focus was on just one. This small group of impassioned supporters
will give him my kidney if they need it.
Echoing the outrage pouring in from Serbia. On the day the Serbs celebrate Christmas, Djokovic was being compared to Jesus. Front and centre, the tennis star's father, later accusing Australia of attacking his son and even Serbia.
They are holding our Novak, our pride, in captivity. Novak is Serbia and Serbia is Novak. They are trampling over Novak, and with this they are trampling over Serbia.
From his mother,
I feel terrible since yesterday, last 24 hours, that they are keeping him as a prisoner. It's just not fair, it's not human.
Even the Serbian president weighed in, calling it a political persecution backed by Prime Minister Morrison.
Frankly, I would expect Australians, sports people who are travelling overseas, to comply with the rules of the countries they're going into.
The government denying Djokovic is any sort of political prisoner.
Mr Djokovic is not being held captive in Australia. He is free to leave at any time that he chooses to do so.
At the Park Hotel, one refugee gave 7 News a tour inside.
Mr Djokovic has been held down there.
Saying the rooms are small, the windows sealed.
There's a window and that's a TV. Here's a bed.
Others appalled by the food, reporting maggots.
He's eating the same food that I eat, probably. And he's using the same sheets that I use.
Australia's ambassador in Serbia has been hauled in. From the foreign minister there, we expect that the ambassador personally takes action for Djokovic to be moved to accommodation befitting the best sportsman in the world. The 9-time Australian Open winner is awaiting his court case Monday and a chance to play for a record 10th win, with some saying he could well win a temporary injunction that would let him play.
There would be strict conditions. It might be that he's required to stay at a particular hotel and travel only to and from the venue.
But the government insists the unvaccinated star may have had a visa, but he didn't have an appropriate medical exemption.
The Minister for Health was absolutely black and white clear to Mr Djokovic.
The federal court will hear that those letters were sent to Tennis Australia. The question is, did they then pass them on to Djokovic? And if not, why not? With revelations today that they certainly didn't share them with the Victorian government.
I'm advised that the Victorian government or members of the Victorian government hadn't seen that correspondence.
From Nick Kyrgios, how we're handling Novak's situation is bad, really bad. Do better. Support elsewhere, though, is thin on the ground. Social media savaging him. The issue now has a theme song.
Novak wants a medical exemption, but you lied and now you're stuck in detention.
Djokovic unlikely to be laughing as he prepares for a court he's never faced before. Chris Reason, 7 News.
Testing queues are slowly improving as rapid antigen tests drip feed into public clinics. 221,000 tests have been distributed, sending sick people from clinic to find them.
2 lines, one an express lane as rapid antigen tests reach Princess Alexandra Hospital.
It's all good, eh? Pretty quick, seamless.
At least half the amount of time that it was taking for the PCR tests to go.
150,000 were distributed yesterday. An extra 60,000 are heading to the regions.
There have been 221,000 rapid antigen tests have been deployed to testing clinics.
A hot commodity that has thousands of people on the hunt. No one knows what clinic they'll be deployed to or when.
They're supposed to be handing out rapid antigen tests. Did they talk to you about that at all?
No.
No option of a rapid antigen?
No.
A Queensland Health spokesperson telling 7 News the tests are going to the clinics with the longest wait times and they're going fast.
We were here at 5 this morning.
Sites like this one at Kelvin Grove can't add a second line, so you'll still wait over 8 hours just to get your hands on a rapid antigen test.
On the Gold Coast, lines wrapped around the block. The Health Minister asking those at walk-in clinics to socially distance.
To just give you a reason why, we did around 36,000 test samples in the last 24 hours. Over 10,000 of those came back positive.
At Boondall, cars were queued from 2 a.m. The situation unchanged, if not worse. The lengthy waits causing not one but 2 flat batteries.
Only in Australia would someone come up and actually help.
The drivers choosing to stay and push their cars along.
Queensland Health confirmed there will be no additional clinics opening over the weekend. Some drive-through sites, like this one at Kelvin Grove, have extended their hours from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to get through the backlog. But to avoid disappointment, the advice is to check online and make sure the clinic closest to you is open and operating.
That's a good tip. Thank you, Caitlin. Well, 19 COVID deaths have been recorded around Australia in the past 24 hours. 11 were in New South Wales. Non-urgent elective surgery is being cancelled, nightclubs are being closed and singing and dancing in venues banned. There were 6 deaths in Victoria. Notifying the government of positive RAT results is now mandatory. And there was 1 death in South Australia where 100 nursing homes have outbreaks and are in lockdown. The southeast corner is tonight still feeling the effects of ex-tropical cyclone Seth. The remnants of the powerful weather system crossed the coastline north of the Sunshine Coast, bringing strong winds and rain.
The sea has turned a dark brown at Maroochydore. No sunshine at all on the Sunshine Coast as the low, which was once Cyclone Seth, made landfall near Rainbow Beach this morning. There's been more than 100 millimetres of rain dumped on some areas in 24 hours. The wild conditions creating mounds of sea foam on the sand and a spectacular sight at Barumba Dam west of Noosa, now overflowing like Little Nerang and Hinds Dams on the Gold Coast. Brisbane's Bayside continues to be battered by strong winds. At Manly, a lone jet ski ploughed through the chop.
Not a good day to be out in the bay today, no. 18 knot easterly, no good.
And at Shorncliffe, kite surfers sped across the water, propelled by wind gusts of up to 50 kilometres an hour.
I don't know if there's any sickies today, but there's a lot of kiters out here that we don't normally see on a weekday.
On the Gold Coast, 30 beaches were reopened to swimmers, 10 stayed shut. The significant weather event may be a long way from here, but lifeguards say it's simply too dangerous to allow people back into the water.
With the direct easterly swell, with the strong winds, lots of current about and a lot of sweep north and south, so quite messy indeed.
At the end of the day, we can't really control it, so I mean, you can still come out to the beach and enjoy it, just can't go into the surf.
Danger flags were lined up from Surfers Paradise to the Spit, where waves slammed against the seaway wall.
It's windy, it's wet, the waves are really big.
Showers plagued the tourist city, 50 millimetres at Tambourine Mountain. Water is spilling across the Oxenford Weir. But despite the rain, it's still school holidays.
Very happy.
Some adapting to the big wet more than others. On the Gold Coast, Amanda Abate, 7 News.
And Georgie, ex-tropical cyclone Seth has brought plenty of rain to parts of Queensland today.
Sam, widespread falls of 10 to 30 millimetres, a lot more west of Fraser Island and Rainbow Beach where the system crossed, with a number of inland locations recording 70 to 100 millimetres since 9 a.m. this morning. A severe storm warning was issued for communities just northwest of Gympie an hour ago. That's since been cancelled, but the threat of heavy rain remains. I'll be back soon with the forecast.
Looking forward to it. Well, it's the most colourful day in cricket, and today the Pink Test raised $43 million for the Drain McGrath Foundation. Fans and cancer survivors agreeing today went beyond just cricket.
The SCG looking pretty in pink.
Pink Test!
The official goal, make this the pinkest test ever. The man himself, home battling COVID, but he is fully waxed.
I think this is beyond cricket. It's beyond, it's great that we can combine sport and combine something like this.
A dream come true for cricket fans young.
Really excited because it's my first time ever and I've been waiting for so long.
And old.
Lifelong dream. In the moment it was introduced, something I've always wanted to do.
Some dressing to remember family.
This is especially my mum did it for me, and she passed away in 2019 from cancer.
Others, close friends.
I'm so grateful because I know Jane would be so grateful for that support.
100,000 families receiving support from the foundation. It's breast care nurses or pink angels, the real heroes.
This event has had everything thrown in it, from COVID-19 to social distancing, and now the weather. But what they may have lost in numbers, but when it comes to spirit, well, they've hit for 6.
For those who couldn't make it, tickets in a virtual stadium sold, with more than $3 million raised.
Oh, it's massive, Flem. It's something I'm very, very proud of.
Topped off with a pledge from the nation's top office.
We'll commit a further $40 million to increase the number of government-funded breast care nurses.
Expectations bowled over on one of cricket's special days. Liam Tapper, 7 News.
A year ago today, the world watched as Donald Trump supporters stormed the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Next, why Joe Biden says America's democracy is still under threat. plus the houses teetering on the edge after those big seas smashed North Stradbroke Island. A truck driver gets himself into a spot of bother, how he got out, and just before weather, what can't she do? See Zoe the Wonder Dog's bag full of tricks. North Stradbroke Island residents fear their homes could fall into the sea unless the shoreline is fortified urgently. Waves are lapping up against Martin Peckham's Amity Point property after powerful swell from ex-tropical cyclone Seth eroded sand and rocks protecting it. He worries another low-pressure system forecast this month could spell disaster.
There's every chance it will take the remaining rock and therefore the sand protect my home and possibly lose the property.
Residents are pleading with the council to supply emergency rocks to safeguard their homes, but so far it's refused. A fired-up Joe Biden has unleashed on his predecessor in the most aggressive speech of his presidency so far. 1 year on from Washington's Capitol Hill riot, the US president accused Donald Trump and his supporters of holding a dagger to the throat of the country's democracy.
Heading to Capitol Hill, Joe Biden. Till now, the president has waved off, even chuckled about, rival Donald Trump. Not today.
He's not just a former president. He's a defeated former president.
Speaking in the same building, under siege 1 year earlier. USA! USA! 5 died, 140 police injured, politicians fleeing as Trump supporters tried to stop confirmation of the presidential election their candidate had lost.
Former President of the United States of America has created and spread a web of lies about the 2020 election.
1 year ago, President Biden had reason to hope that the election cheating claims and Donald Trump himself would fade into history. It hasn't happened. Recent polling shows tens of millions of Americans remain convinced their presidential election was rigged. Tonight, duelling protests with duelling takes on last year's riot.
I was there. It was a beautiful crowd. Everybody loved each other.
Scary time.
Really scary time.
Americans yet to resolve their differences from the last presidential vote.
God bless America.
And it's far from clear they'll accept the outcome of the next one. In Washington, D.C., Tim Lester, 7 News.
A member of the jury that convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell has now hired his own lawyer in the face of a possible retrial. After a unanimous verdict convicted Maxwell of sex trafficking, one male juror revealed in media interviews that he was sexually abused as a child. He claims that helped him convince some other jurors that victims can often have imperfect memories. That's enough for Maxwell's legal team to ask for a retrial, which they've signalled they will. A driver in China has ended up dangling off a 100-metre cliff. The path became too narrow. That's when he tried to reverse down, but the front wheels slipped. The driver escaped while rescuers salvaged the vehicle before it plummeted. Short of staff and short on food, the Whitsunday Islands and tourists caught in the COVID chaos. That's next. Plus, a cowardly, unprovoked attack on a Logan scooter rider, his remarkable survival. Nothing stops the great race, not even a virus. The plan for this weekend's Gold Coast Magic Millions. And who's the lucky Brisbane man who won the lot in last night's Powerball? A driver is dead after a horror crash in the Moreton Bay region. A Land Cruiser and a Triton collided head-on on the Diagula Highway at Stony Creek this morning. The 51-year-old man driving the Land Cruiser died at the scene. His 49-year-old female passenger was airlifted to Sunshine Coast Hospital in a critical condition. 3 other people were injured. Police are investigating whether the Triton veered into the wrong lane due to a mechanical fault. Customers are being warned to expect empty shelves for the next couple of weeks as staff shortages constrict the supply chain. Woolworths has lost 20% of its distribution staff and 10% of store workers to COVID, impacting stock on shelves and in fridges.
What we are seeing now is what is going to continue for at least a couple of weeks.
The Transport Workers Union says 30 to 50% of port workers are staying home, slowing imports. Holidays cancelled, activities called off, restaurants closed and not enough food for guests. It's been a horror start to the new year for those who headed to the Whitsunday Islands, where a huge proportion of staff are either in isolation or infected with COVID.
On Daydream Island, an SOS from the holiday of nightmares.
Downhill spiral all the time, with restaurants closing every day. And yesterday they shut all the food on the island.
Overnight, this was the line to get into the only restaurant open. Food and staff in short supply.
People had to go to the supermarket here, raid the chip aisle.
Large numbers of workers across Daydream, Hamilton and Hayman Island have COVID or are in isolation.
All the day trips have been cancelled, limited staff, pool bars shut. Yeah, it hasn't been much good.
It's not how Daniel O'Connor had envisioned his romantic island getaway to propose to partner Kelly.
It was nothing but a table with a sea of empty glasses and rubbish.
The only place open to celebrate, the buffet.
Once you waited about half an hour, 40 minutes in the line to get to the front, food scraps were everywhere, half the things were empty.
The couple also worried some staff weren't taking the risk seriously.
They were saying they were closed due to COVID cases, but the staff weren't wearing masks, they weren't enforcing masks, they weren't using hand sanitizer.
A holiday they'll never forget. Georgie Chumley, 7 News.
Dozens of people have been killed in a crackdown against anti-government protests in Kazakhstan. After blaming interference from foreign powers for the unrest, the Russian president has sent his own troops over the border to quell the violence.
On the streets of Kazakhstan's largest city, troops open fire as Russian soldiers head for the border to join them, invited in on a peacekeeping mission in the aftermath of days of protest that's seen thousands take to the streets of cities across the country, angry at high fuel prices and apparent government indifference. The mayor's office still burns. The presidential palace, a smouldering burnt-out shell surrounded by the charred remains of security forces' vehicles. Now, the crackdown has begun.
Whether they are Kazakh or whether they are non-Kazakh troops, need to uphold the same human rights.
But up to 2,000 people have been arrested. Dozens of protesters are dead. Kazakh authorities say they were eliminated. Tonight, there's radio silence from Kazakhstan. The internet's been cut off. Mobile phone coverage is down. After months of massing on Russia's border with Ukraine, Moscow is now sending troops south. Some Western analysts believe Vladimir Putin may see this as an opportunity. In London, Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
A Woodridge man has survived being attacked with a plank of wood and hit by a truck. The 25-year-old was riding an electric scooter beside Wembley Road yesterday afternoon when two men ambushed him. As he tried to escape, he fell into the path of a truck, lying motionless, while his attackers fled. Police arrested the pair minutes later on a nearby street. The rider was taken to the PA hospital with just a bruise to his head and declined to make a complaint. The two men were released without charge. Rain could delay the start of the Magic Millions Carnival, but organisers are confident a bumper first weekend will go ahead. All the action kicks off with the Wave race day tomorrow, followed by Sunday's Polo. Meanwhile, the stables are open for inspection ahead of next week's multi-million-dollar auction. Gay Waterhouse was spotted this morning hunting out a future champion.
Even with the rain, it's fabulous. You know, everyone seems to be having fun. It takes a lot more than a pandemic to impact me.
Show jumping has been added to the entertainment before Sunday's celebrity and professional polo matches. It's the biggest tech and gadget show in the world. Features for every part of the house and a car that changes colour at the touch of a button. One of Australia's most wanted extradited to the Gold Coast. What is it with shopping centre ceilings? Another comes crashing down. And this is no old dog being taught new tricks. It's Zoe the Wonder Dog, fast becoming an online star. Checking finance now, and the Australian share market ended the week higher today. The ASX 200 rising 1.3%. Private health insurers were to thank for today's gains. Suncorp and Medibank stocks rose sharply after the New South Wales government announced it was suspending elective surgeries to reduce the strain on hospitals. But tech stocks lost out, with Xero falling 0.5%. The Australian dollar is buying 71 US cents and $1.06 New Zealand. A fugitive who spent more than a decade on the run is now behind bars on the Gold Coast. Michael Tillman flew into Coolangatta from Sydney late this afternoon, accompanied by detectives. The 49-year-old is accused of 2 violent incidents on the Gold Coast in 2010 and 2011. He surrendered to police on Wednesday. Tillman could face Southport Court as early as tomorrow. A summer storm has lashed parts of Victoria this afternoon. Heavy rain caused a shopping centre's ceiling to come crashing down in Melbourne, sending shoppers scrambling. The temperamental thunderstorm dumped a deluge, causing flash flooding and inundating roads. Warnings of large hail and damaging winds are in place for Melbourne and popular holiday destinations along the Mornington Peninsula. From cars that change colour to larger-than-life TVs and game-changing devices for new parents. They were all on display at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. The Omicron outbreak meant many companies were forced to pull the pin, but there was still plenty of innovation to get excited about.
The biggest tech and gadget show in the world, this year a little different.
A lot of companies have decided to stay away this year.
But that hasn't stopped other innovators heading to Las Vegas to reveal products we didn't even know we needed. TVs, as always, were front and centre.
120-inch laser TV. This is a product which is absolutely ridiculous, but is going to bring you that amazing cinema quality experience.
LG rolling out a new screen which can move from room to room. Samsung has brushed up on the frame. It displays artwork when it's switched off, but now it's also anti-glare. Smartphones stood out, offering more for less.
It has an awesome camera, it's got an all-day battery and the ability to wireless charge, all for under $1,000.
Auto giant BMW stole the show with technology that changes the colour of your car with the touch of a button, while this sleep trainer can tell new parents why their baby is crying.
Any parent will want to buy this product.
Timely products too. This ventilation creation can be put under a face mask to keep you cool.
COVID is a big theme here for products.
Also a big challenge. Smaller crowds and a day shorter. The tech world hoping next year will be virus-free. Natasha Squarey, 7 News.
They draw a crowd wherever they go. A Gold Coast pack with no limits to their tricks. The star of the show, Zoe the Wonder Dog, a 7-year-old staffy. That story's just ahead. Plenty of stars stealing the show in sport, Ben.
Yeah, cricket, tennis, even league, Sam. G'day, everyone. Coming up, England's first century of the series. Scott Boland goes deeper into Ashes folklore on a day of the bazaar in Sydney, where Stokes was saved by the bail. And Ash Barty's revenge mission on her Australian Open conqueror. The Empire has struck back in the Ashes with Johnny Bairstow defying pain and the world's best attack to produce a fighting century on day 3 of the 4th test. A pace bowling blitz destroyed the tourist top order, but Bairstow's ton boosted their total and avoided the follow-on.
More rain, another late start on the century makers on a roll, Usman Khawaja. Yesterday's hero among all players auctioning pink caps for the McGrath Foundation. First to strike, a local hero.
Oh, got him! Stark bursting through.
Top poll taker with 15 wickets, the stark message for batters, use it or lose it. Cue the cult hero.
Boland again!
6 for 7 in Melbourne for Scott Boland, followed by 1 for none. But this bloke doesn't take wickets one at a time.
Edge taken!
A duck for Joe Root, the Boxing Day hero embraced by the pink crowd on of all days like Glenn McGrath. Cameron Green got in on the act. At lunch, England 4 for 36. Amidst the bowling blitzkrieg, the bazaar.
Oh, and he's bowled him!
Ben Stokes standing firm, the bail failing to dislodge.
That is quite incredible.
Could Stark cleaning spikes with a bail be to blame? Stokes struck back, wincing from that side strain. Johnny Bairstow took 1 for Queen and Country. Crowd abuse annoying both batsmen at tea. Stokes punishing Nathan Lyon, belting the off-spinner beyond the boundary. A Lyon arm ball trapped the all-rounder in front for 66. A painful thumb knock for Bairstow required running repairs. He too belting the goat into the grandstand.
Goes hard and long. Big ball.
A lack of bounce almost undid Mark Wood. Pat Cummins' bounces seemed to only hit helmet, but Snicko sensed a splinter of bat. Wood gone for 39. Bairstow scoring England's first century of the series.
Brilliant. And you can see what it means to him.
Andrew McKinlay, 7 News.
The reinforcements that have patched up the heat are turning the club's COVID positives into a positive. Despite last night's 5-wicket loss to the Renegades, Brisbane's new band of brothers back up tomorrow at the Gabba, feeling like winners. Like West's all-rounder Steve McGiffin. Yesterday morning he was fishing at Turkey Beach, just outside of Gladstone, when he answered the call of a lifetime.
So a 6.5-hour drive back to Brisbane, jumps on a plane, joins Jake Lehman out in the middle playing against the Melbourne Renegades.
Who boast 7 internationals, including World Cup winning captain Aaron Finch.
It's going to run away for 4.
What an opportunity this is. Like, not many people, I guess, get to have this opportunity, and we wouldn't have had it if there wasn't COVID. It's almost a free hit for us guys.
And that's exactly how Jake Lehman approached it.
Oh, beautifully played. Off middle stump.
His call-up, a no-brainer when your dad's the coach. Amazingly, it was a first for the father-son combination.
Yeah, it is a little bit funny when he's standing right there, and I guess you don't call him dad out here, you call him Buff or something like that.
The former striker's first big bash in 3 years.
Slashing square cut. Perfect way to bring up your 50.
A game-high 65. He'll open against Hobart at the Gabba tomorrow night. But what about when the virus clears?
I'm pretty sure when Chris Lynn's fit and ready to play, he's going to play. So,
Just like Will Pekowski tomorrow in Melbourne grade cricket, cleared of concussion.
I've been batting for probably a month. I sort of try and keep it pretty simple at the best of times. So haven't changed too much.
It'll be his first match since last January's Test debut. Ash Barty's semi-finals bound in Adelaide after her revenge mission on 2020 Australian Open champ Sophia Kenin. The world number 1 dismantled the American at the Adelaide International 2 years after she knocked Ash out of her home slam. The Queenslander needed just over an hour to seal a straight sets win.
That's what you want. Honestly, it's nice to come out here and really be tested right from the start and know that you have to bring your very best level.
Last night, Alex de Minaur fought back from a set down, guiding Australia to a 2-1 victory over France, but it wasn't enough to stop the hosts being knocked out of the ATP Cup. $1 Million man David Fifita is among 23 Titans struck down by COVID. Just 14 of their 37-man squad, barely enough to put a side on the park, were able to attend their first session of the year, and some of them have already had the virus.
Probably from a timing point of view, to go through this at this period of the year as opposed to go through it in April is probably a really positive thing for the NRL and the game and for ourselves.
So far, it is the highest number of cases reported among the NRL clubs. With dislocated shoulders, desert rain and dunes, it's been a war of attrition in motorsport's torture test, the Dakar Rally. Getting bogged isn't unusual in the Saudi desert, but in water...
Cars to the left of me, big trucks to the right, and here I am, stuck in a river with you.
Once the rain cleared, bikes had to contend with 80 k's of dunes. Top-ranked Aussie Daniel Sanders dislocated his shoulder in the soft stuff, while Queensland's Toby Price made his move, fastest in the stage, until a 6-minute penalty for a speeding regulation.
We made one big mistake and it's going to cost us a little bit today, but yeah, all in all, we got through fairly safe.
Yeah, good stuff. It cost the two-time champ a spot in the top 10. Now, Sam, cricket tomorrow. It's an early start, 9 a.m. First ball at the SCG. Fingers crossed, no rain.
We'll have to set the alarm. Thanks, Ben. Well, a Brisbane man is $60 million richer after winning the entire Powerball jackpot. After several missed calls, he answered his phone to the news the ticket he'd bought online was a winner.
He really thought this was some kind of G-up. He said it was a massive shock to the system and would take a lot to process.
The man in his 30s says he'll use his winnings to buy his first home and still plans to turn up to work. Just like I would. Not long now before you meet Zoe, a talented staffy cross with plenty of tricks up her sleeve.
And the likelihood of a cyclone up north is growing. When could it make an appearance? I'll have the forecast next.
A playful pooch on the Gold Coast is proving to be a hit online after videos of the Staffy Cross riding a skateboard received hundreds of thousands of views. It's an unusual sight on the city's esplanade that's now bringing joy to many.
Cruising down the Burleigh Heads beachfront. A delicate balancing act, ensuring this pack always draws a crowd. But it's the online antics of Zoe the Wonder Dog gaining attention from around the world. The 7-year-old Staffy Cross drives tractors, dresses up, and isn't afraid to put a spin on your typical dog tricks.
It's a great joy to see people put the smiles on their faces, especially in a difficult time as we're going through now.
Zoe has been mastering her craft since she was just 3 months old.
Zoe, take a bow.
Over the years, another 3 dogs have joined her, learning to trust in their tricks and their owner, Brian Reichelt.
Just a lot of fun, and they all have their own personalities.
Brian says patience and persistence is key if you want to teach your dog to do similar tricks, and of course treats certainly help too.
If they know there's food involved, they'll do their best to learn the trick.
These popular pups are already working on their next set of moves, ready to turn more heads. Georgia Costi, 7 News.
Clever dog. Well, weather now. Here's Georgie Chumley.
Sam, it was a gloomy day in the southeast with light showers in Brisbane, but from the Sunshine Coast hinterland north, the rain really kicked off. It was 27 on the Sunshine Coast. Taking a look at the satellite, you can see all that rain generated by ex-tropical cyclone Seth. Inland areas from Bundaberg to the Sunshine Coast copping a drenching. Now, heavy rain could intensify overnight in that region and will continue into tomorrow, so keep up to date with storm warnings. Taking a look around the country, it's pretty wet on the east coast, Sydney 22 to 28 degrees. Back home to North Queensland, a low is expected to form tomorrow in the northern Coral Sea off the far northern Queensland coast. There's a high chance, more than 50%, it could form into a cyclone by Monday. At this stage to the north of Cooktown, but that could change. Moving south, showers possible in eastern regions. Gympie, a possible thunderstorm, 22 to 28. Taking a closer look at the southeast, Ipswich will be 22 to 30 degrees, Caboolture slightly cooler, a top of 28 there. Zooming into the suburbs, 22 to 28 in Dayborough, Samford and Ferny Grove. If you're heading out on the bay, winds will be northeasterly, 15 knots. So in Brisbane tomorrow, we can expect a shower or two, dropping to 23 degrees overnight, forecast to reach a maximum of 28 degrees. And looking at the 7-day forecast, it's looking pretty good. Partly cloudy, 29 degrees, the top on Sunday, and then it will heat up on Monday, partly cloudy and 29 degrees for the rest of the week. Into Ipswich, it'll be 31 degrees tomorrow, or on Sunday rather, with some sunshine, warming up to 32 degrees on Monday. A bit of cloud around for the rest of the week, but plenty of sunny breaks too. Now on the Gold Coast, Sunday will be the better beach day. The chance of showers increases on Monday to a top of 29, and then some more showers later in the week. And to the Sunshine Coast. We could get a shower or two almost every day over the coming week. Again, Sunday is the exception. Maximum temperatures will hover around 27 to 28 degrees. Now, here's Liz with the Surf Report.
The beaches to avoid over the coming days will be those around river mouths, as the ocean clarity has been compromised due to all the rain runoff and there's hidden debris. The pick of spots for holidaymakers would be Rainbow Bay, Green Mountain, Kira, or on the Sunshine Coast, Kings Beach, Caloundra will offer shelter from the winds. Surfers could choose to rest their arms tomorrow with dreaded east-northeasterlies forecast, or if you don't mind a lumpy wave, there should still be over a metre of easterly swell at the exposed beach breaks. An incoming tide peaking around 1.5 metres just after midday. And it's been all about river fishing this week. Sports Tuition having a great time in the Mooloolah River, catch and releasing this 78 centimetre flathead. There's plenty of whiting around too in both the waterways and inshore beach gutters.
And that's all from us this Friday. Thanks for your company. I'll have updates throughout the evening. But for now, from all the team, have a great weekend. I'll see you tomorrow night.